Good morning. I'm with the City of Manhattan Beach in the Public Works Department. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. All right, Jin Pak.
I'm with the Golden State Water Company, Planning
Thank you.
Department.
Thank you so much. Chuck Scheich.
Yeah, Chuck Scheich, City of Torrance.
Thank you. Next it says CR. Can the person whose initials are CR let us know who you are and what agency you're with? All right, we'll circle back to that one. Elias?
Good morning. Pleasure to be here. Name is Elias Sassoon. I'm a Public Works Director for City of El Segundo.
Thank you. Everett?
Thank you. Everett Ferguson from the Water Replenishment District.
Thank you so much, Everett. Next up is Farida.
Farida Murdoch, Torrance Refining Company.
Thank you. Leah Portman.
Good morning, Leah Portman with the City of Torrance.
Thank you. Martinez, it doesn't say the whole name. There's a comment there. Sorry, one more time. Martinez Yerba.
That's me, Linda. I'm with Veolia from Edward Little facility.
Thank you so much. All right, we have Michael.
Michael Gagan with Kendall Gagan. I'm an interested observer.
Thank you so much, Michael. Narita, I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly, probably, I apologize. Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Narita Gonzalez with Golden State Water Company in the Water Resources Department.
Thank you. Nikki Petrov.
Good morning. My name is Nikki Petrov, and I am with the City of Manhattan Beach's Public Works Department.
Thank you so much. Thomas Lee. Thomas Lee. All right. Well, I do see that our general manager is up in our boardroom now. And I maybe still getting situated here. I'll do a quick introduction for myself, but I know that our new general manager, Gregory Reed, would like to make some opening comments and introduction. So those who have not met him, but for the balance of the presentation, you'll hear from me. My name is Margaret Mogia. I'm the Executive Manager of Finance. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Greg, if you would like to share welcome and introductions, and then we can begin with the presentation.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Margaret, and thank you to all of our guests who are present with us in today's workshop. I'd also like to thank our Director Williams, who has also joined us in today's workshop as well, and all of our esteemed colleagues from the various agencies that are within our service territory. Just a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Greg Reed, and I'm newly appointed General Manager for West Basin Municipal Water District. My background is having worked with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power in the water business for the previous 20 years, working in various areas such as construction, groundwater management, corporate programs, project management, environmental programs as well, and then also experience with LA Department of Transportation and in the Public Works Department. So overall 30 years of experience in public sector employment, and now continuing my career here with the district, and really happy to be here with a great team, a very innovative organization, leader in recycled water, and positioned to help the region increase its sustainability, especially in a time like now where our water supplies are critically constrained. As I think it's not lost on anyone here in the meeting today, with pressure on the state water project allocations having been cut back down to 5%, as well as our Colorado River Aqueduct, which has shortage triggers enacted, possibly reaching a second shortage trigger. And so with that, it's crucial for those of us within the district service territory to do all we can to conserve every drop, to use water wisely. Of course, we know that the Metropolitan Water District recently enacted the emergency water shortage declaration and calling upon mandatory cutbacks in water use for certain areas. That mandate doesn't apply to the West Basin District Service Territory because we are not exclusively dependent upon state water project supplies. However, we should do everything we can to promote earnest conservation within our district. And so I encourage you to do so within your jurisdictions. And we can partner together in incentivizing conservation efforts such as indoor appliances, rebates to go to more water efficient appliances, as well as changing out our lawns, things like that, turf rebates to encourage that as well. So look forward to working closely with each of our agencies and water managers and service providers on doing all the important work that we do. So with that said, I have a few prepared remarks here, courtesy of our Executive Manager of Finance, Margaret Moja. So I'm going to go ahead and read through those. Over the past few months, a series of workshops have been conducted with the West Basin Board of Directors to review the budget priorities and underlying assumptions to develop the proposed fiscal year 2022-23 budget and our proposed rates and charges. The workshop today will provide you with a summary of those previous discussions with our board to review the budget that supports the programs, projects, and resources necessary to meet the mission of the district to provide safe and reliable sources of water to the communities that we serve. We understand the challenges we each face with the challenge of supply chain issues, the cost increases around us, this inflationary market that we're in, and we're taking those into consideration as we develop the budget for this district. We also understand the opportunity to connect with our regional partners to ensure that moving forward, that our investments into this system and our programs meet the expectations of our collective response to the historic drought and the limited allocation of supply from the state water project. So with that, connecting with our customers is very important to the process, and we value your input. So thank you for joining us today. Please do not hesitate to provide commentary in response to the presentation today. Please feel free to share your thoughts during this workshop. You can also contact me separately if you want to share thoughts, and I welcome that. Or if you'd like to contact our Manager of Finance, Margaret Moja. So with that, a decision on the adoption of the fiscal budget for 22-23 and the resolution on the water rates and charges is expected for presentation for board consideration in our June board meeting. And the June board meeting would be on, let me see if I can find the date here.
June 27th.
June 27th. Thank you, Margaret. So that'll be the last Monday in June is when we will present for board consideration. So with all of that in mind, I am happy to turn it back over to our Executive Manager of Finance, Ms. Margaret Moja.
Well, thank you so much. And I do also want to acknowledge that our board president, Mr. Don Deere, is also online. So for those of you who haven't met Don Deere, as well as you can see in the boardroom, we also have our immediate past president, Mr. Williams. All right, with that, I know there was a couple questions or comments made in the chat, and I'll just address it real quick. My apologies for those that didn't receive it. I am certainly happy that you are there. If by chance you received this in notification by other means, by all means, I would encourage you to send an email directly to me. I can put my contact information in the chat, or to our board secretary, so we can make sure that you're on our list and make sure that you're included. The second aspect or question that was made in the chat was as it relates to the master plan. The master plan is still under discussion with our board. They're reviewing various sections there, and as such, that information is an ongoing discussion with our board of directors. All right, well, I'm ready to begin with this year's customer agency workshop again. So happy to have so many of you here today with us to go over this very important process, if you will, with West Basin. And so on screen, you have the presentation, but I will also share, as Greg mentioned, this has been a series of workshops that we have conducted, and each of those presentations are actually shown on our website. And that website location is under our finance section. You go under our financial reports, and you will see all the workshops listed, and then a link to the board agenda, as well as the recording. So if you want to go back and listen to any aspect of it, that's there. But what you get here is a highlight of all those hours of workshops that we've already had with our board. They do take this very seriously. And as you heard from our general manager, this is a great time for us to see how we can address the drought conditions. How do we make sure that we provide safe and reliable water to the communities we serve? So with that, I ask us just to go to the next slide. Thank you. As I just shared, that is our mission statement. And I have always started each of our workshops with the board to make sure that they understand, and for you, the customers, also to understand what our mission is. We are very much focused in on making sure that we do provide a safe and reliable supply of high quality water to the communities we serve. And so the programs, projects, and activities that we do all are in that effort to make sure that we are providing that to you. If we turn to the next page, you will see here's today's agenda. We did go through and started off this process in January with our board, reviewing our budget priorities, and we'll go through that there. We will then review our proposed operating expenses and capital budget. We'll then review our water sales assumptions and our proposed rates and charges, and then provide you an overall summary of our revenues and expenses. Let's move forward and just share with you again the next slide, please. And then one more. We want to just again share with you that again, this has been a series of workshops here. And again, by no means is this budget ready to be adopted. There are still some questions out there by our board of directors that staff is addressing, and we'll be bringing back some information to them in the May timeframe here. But again, having you, the customer, also be involved in this process and sharing your input is something that our board of directors do want to hear, our general manager wants to hear, and of course we as staff want to hear and make sure that we are at least addressing your comment and question and seeing how we can incorporate. But again, this budget is not set to be considered by our board of directors until the June timeframe, where again we would ask for their consideration to adopt the budget as well as the resolution on the water rates and charges. So if we move forward to the next slide, please. So on the next slide here, we have our budget priorities, and there's a number of the next few pages just kind of going over the different things that you see there. So under the Office of the General Manager and the board initiatives is a few items there. We have a current strategic plan. It was last adopted, if you will, in 2017. And that has, been, 5 years, if you will, and it's time for us to look at it. And as you also, heard from Greg's opening remarks, we're at a pivotal moment here to sort of see how we can partner with our regional partners, and really that will see how we evolve as sort of collaborating, if you will, with those partners. And so with that, we will conduct, board planning sessions and manager sessions so that we can align all of our efforts to the strategic direction here going forward. We also have an election this year. We have 3 board members that are up for election, so we want to make sure that we get them installed and into the process, if you will, that's there. And with the discussion around diversity, equity, inclusion, that's been very important here to the district, and we want to expand our efforts there to make sure that we understand the process that's there. We also, as an agency, do see that our involvement with our community, both at the professional and association level, is important to us to be able to spread that word, if you will, about the good works that this district does. And we do so by participating in a variety of memberships and sponsorships. And so we've been having a good dialogue with the board to understand what are the right ones for us to participate at this moment in time. Turning to the next page. With the next page here is talking about organizational effectiveness. We want to conduct a succession planning study here. Again, we are a small agency of about 50 employees or so. We do have some individuals that are starting to retire, and we want to make sure that we're adequately planning for those individuals to retire and to make sure that there's someone there to step up into those positions there. So that's an important item for us as well. We also want to look into our safety and risk management support to make sure that we're adequately supporting the efforts that are there as we continue to have projects and do our activities, making sure that all those are taken into consideration. We want to focus in our employment development training. Certainly, we as an agency, have been doing our best, through these last couple of years with training, virtually, but certainly some of those trainings like important things like CPR and those kind of things are important, or just effective communication or writing. All of those things are important, and we will continue to assess with our managers who what those are. We have a small amount of dollars there, but really important for us to focus in on. We are, like many of you, having that discussion about, are we, together? Are we, doing it virtually? We see ourselves all virtually here. But that said, we want to encourage that in-person employee morale event and making sure that we are cohesive as a group. And then what is important to our board as well is that we do actually have a policy on our small and local businesses and making sure that where possible that we can reach out to our small and local businesses and encourage that participation there. And so we'll continue to evaluate and see how we can do so. Next slide, please. In the area of water management and operational analysis and studies, Greg has sort of touched upon a few of them here, and you'll see them throughout that's there. And why that was important to share these budget priorities beforehand is that there, could be dollars associated with some of these items. And in this particular area, there is, some consultant dollars where we're looking to put into the budget that would really help us here. So one of them is our cost of service and rate analysis study there. I'm making sure that, we can align that with all of our various contracts that we have with refineries and other types of water users. We are looking to partner up with the City of Los Angeles and working with them on an MBR project. We want to make sure our emergency response plan is updated, and then conducting a regional study. Again, going back to Greg's comments there, we have an opportunity here to really collaborate with our regional partners. And in that end, because of all the sort of discussion around water, we want to make sure that we build upon the success of our urban water management plan that was issued and continue to develop on the modeling associated with that, so that we have some good understanding from you, the customers, of where you guys are going and how are you planning your water usage, be it from groundwater or increased conservation or other efforts, so that we can understand sort of the impacts to the sales assumptions that we use, because sales assumptions are a significant portion of what we do. Of course, we want to pursue whatever opportunities that we can to promote our water conservation programs, and we want to make sure that we're reporting out all this information there. In the area, next slide, please, I'm sorry. In the area of our water operations, again, most of this is just to make sure that we are taking care of the operations that's there. A lot of words on this page, but mostly that we're making sure we're having the right enhancements, the right optimization, and the important reporting requirements that is required by regulatory bodies, if you will, to make sure that we can meet the water quality standards that are out there. So I won't go necessarily into each of those words there, but understand very much that our operations team is very much engaged on making sure that we're taking care of our recycling water facilities, and to make sure that not only they're for that, but also we do have our operations team connect with us too as it relates to things that might happen at Metropolitan Water District, and they do monitor that for us as well. Next slide, please. Conservation program enhancements. Again, we know that conservation is a way of life. It's not just when a drought happens. We need to make permanent changes in the way that we address that. And our conservation, our water use efficiency team is very much geared into finding ways to be able to do so, not only with our residential, but with our commercial, industrial, and institutional customers as well. We want to look at what opportunities that we have there to make appropriate changes to our landscapes with more drought tolerant. You heard Greg mention about turf replacement. We continue to support that program there. And again, we want to engage with you, the retail agencies, on those the water use efficiency programs and how we can help understand that forecasting so we can collectively, do our part for the drought situation. Next slide, please. Heading into our outreach and education programs, we're very excited that this is our 75th year of anniversary. Here in 2022, we were formed in 1947, and so we want to make sure that we recognize the efforts of our past and as we build into our future. So you probably have already seen some, but we will continue to shine on the efforts that West Basin has done here. We are looking to do more with our education. Even in fact, this week, I believe we are doing a water industry career sort of webinar so that people, sort of the next gen, if you will, of individuals can understand what is it like to be, here in this space and how can they be a part of it. We also want to communicate on our water use efficiency programs, our recycle water projects, and how we can increase the overall awareness to our region on just what's happening with Metropolitan Water District and the areas that are around us. And then what we're excited about too is just resuming the in-person education. No better way to learn than to see it firsthand, to have that hands-on experience. And so we're looking forward to and starting to actually have those in tours in hand for that. So with that, we'll take to the next slide, please. On our capital projects there, we do have a couple of projects that are well, the first one's under construction currently. That is to continue as our custom engineer and microfiltration, CEMF, if I say that, it's one of the same, over at one of our regional, one of our plants, which is the Juanita Millender Carson Regional Water Reclamation Plant. I don't know if it's easier to say the letters or the words, but nonetheless, it's an important satellite facility for us to be able to deliver to one of our refinery customers. We also have this opportunity with the Palos Verdes Recycle Water Pipeline to move forward on that project there. And what's nice about these two projects is that we've been able to secure grants and some customer funding to really help offset those particular costs for that particular program, and also receive a loan from the state at a very attractive rate. So we're very excited about moving forward with those two projects there. And as we look to the R&R of our facilities, again, we've built this project, water has been flowing, if you will, from our main treatment facility over in El Segundo since 1995. And so we have an extensive R&R program. And as Greg heard mentioned earlier, we want to see how we continue to have that dialogue with our board to understand sort of how those projects align to sort of the future vision for the district here. And just to let you know that the district is looking to discuss, to explore, if you will, the relocation of our district headquarters. A decision was made by the board to explore those options earlier this year, and so we're moving forward with that, some of that effort there. More to come on that. Nothing sort of very discreet on that, but at this moment, but we are looking to supply those answers there to our boards as they make that decision. And so with that, I'll take it over to the next section, please. So here I wanted just to share with you each of our sort of proposed program budgets, if you will. And what we have here is a sort of a side-by-side comparison. These numbers, again, will continue to evolve, but as we see it today, you can see that there has been a sizable increase in our recycled water program. Most notably is that third bullet down there. You see that little asterisk there? That is the one that has been really that supply chain challenge that we've been really dealing with here. Chemicals is really, costs have increased year over year, 40% for us. And so we are starting to see the impact that it could have to our operations and how we can sort of mitigate some of those things. And we're continuing to work with our chemical vendors to make sure that we can have sort of some known numbers, if you will, during this contract period, our budget period. Other areas that you might see increases in are in our operations from our utilities, I should say, and those that are driven, if you will, by sort of usage. And if we go actually to the next slide, if you will, that will provide you a little more context of sort of the bigger items, if you will. Contract operations, we do use a third party to support that for us. And it doesn't, per contract, it does have a salary adjustment associated with it. And it does take into consideration an addition of another person over there to help us with our SCADA system. I already mentioned about the chemicals, utilities. Again, we have higher demand, barrier water demand anticipated in our budget. And there's corresponding increases on electricity usage there. The board did also make a decision just about a couple months ago regarding about a month ago actually, for our direct access program. And this is providing us a rate on our usage of electricity, and so we can know what that number is. So we entered into a 3-year program on that one there. So hopefully we'll see stability in the area of our utilities going forward. And of course, too, we've had some upsets this past year as it relates to our operations because of a spill where we get our source water from. We still see some remnant effects of that, and so it does require us sometimes to blend with potable water to be able to again meet the needs of our customers. But again, we are monitoring that and trying to reduce that use of that imported water for that purpose. And then also our solids handling is also increasing, also facing some supply chain challenges in that area as well. Just drivers and where we can deliver it and all those good aspects there. On the right side, you'll see there sort of that unit cost. So if you just take your total budget by the total acre feet that you assume there, you can see that over the last few years, first two are actual, the last two are just sort of the budget comparison. You can see that it's been just year over year, 21-22 to 22-23, a $300 per acre foot increase on our operations budget. So, we're very cognizant of that, and we will continue to work on minimizing those cost increases there. But as budgeted, you can see that has increased. And over to the left, you'll see that those are sort of the proposed budgets, both with our refinery. You can see a big portion of it, our disinfected tertiary clients, which are, of course, our sales of irrigated water to, our parks, medians, cemeteries. And then, of course, our water that we sell to WRD for the barrier of 11,006. With that, I'll take us to the next slide. On the technical planning, we have a side-by-side comparison here. This is where you've seen some big dollars increases here, and it's in a couple of areas there, which are noted on the next slide. But again, we have this project share. This is the MBR project I mentioned earlier. And so we do anticipate that we would have an amount that we would need to pay, if you will, in fiscal year 22-23 to continue that relationship with the city. And you also see a consultant budget here, and the dollars that are being spent here, while similar in numbers, are actually going to different efforts, and I wanted to share those on the next few slides. So next page, please. First is our emergency response plan. As you can see here, we do have a plan in place, and we are working with our operations team to make sure that we are updating that and making a more cohesive aspect here. And also, while not necessarily required for us as our municipal water district, we know that the wastewater and drinking water do have a requirement that's there, and we are strongly urged to do so as well. And so we are looking to align, if you will, to the American Water Infrastructure Act, and more importantly to that risk and resilience study. And so we are looking to, bring a consultant in there to help us a little bit on that effort there. On to the next page. This is the noted amount relating to the Hyperion pilot study. This is a very exciting project for us to, again, to collectively as a region, see how we can support providing water to our constituents. And so there's been a number of steps that has been taken along the way. Ultimately, we're here to work with this group between the LA SAN and LADWP to provide support to them for their operation next in their Hyperion 2035. And it's a three-way agreement between those three parties. And this is our share of that. And with that, we know we continue to have discussions and very productive discussions with them. I'm very excited here. I think it helps too to have our new general manager being LADWP. He can certainly provide his insight here too, as well as we move through this process. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Our cost of service and rate study, again, making sure we understand that what it costs to produce each different types of recycled water. Again, we provide 5 different types of water quality. We want to make sure that there's equity amongst them. We understand sort of what the ongoing operational costs are, what the ongoing R&R costs are, and make sure that we're able to really financially support the recycled water system. And so, again, this is very important to us. We do have a number of contracts that are coming up in the next few years. And so we want to make sure that as we work with our own sort of internal numbers, that it allows us to be in a good position to work through that with our customers so that they understand what those costs are. Moving on to the next item here, which is that interconnection feasibility study. So it's another way of sort of taking a look at it. How do we partner with those that are around us? And so we, again, are starting to have some dialogue with some interested parties here to make sure we understand sort of where it is. So it's about making sure that we can connect those different regional systems together and for a more productive use, if you will, for water reuse. So it's shown on this slide here is sort of the map of where it could be, but on to the next slide, if you will, gives you a little bit more of sort of the specific objectives. If you can go to the next slide. Gives you the specific objectives is, again, working with the city, understanding sort of what we would do as far as regional brackish water desalter, the regional recycled water program that Metropolitan Water District is doing. And again, I already mentioned the LA SAN, LADWP. So it's, having all those parties sort of around the table and having that discussion together. So very exciting opportunity for us, collectively to see how we can resolve or address our portion within our service area. And on to the next page, please, is one more study that we plan to do. Again, very important to us. The groundwater, we know is a source for some of our customers, and there are some opportunities out there for us to see how we can support that effort as well. And so we do have a study to take a look at that particular project. And that could be implemented over 2 phases. And so we first want to just go through that conceptual options and sort of see where that goes. And again, all of those will be something will be before our board to consider as we look to how that incorporate that into our strategic business plan. So you can see a lot of important studies here are planned for at least initiated in the next fiscal year. But again, very much important for us to know that we are here to support our customers at this time. All right, let's move on to the next section, please. That next section is on our public information education. And again, you'll see the side-by-side comparison. So relatively flat between the 2 years, maybe spending, same amount of dollars, but maybe spending them a little bit differently. And so we'll go through the next couple slides just to kind of share out what those those items are. So if we can turn to the next page, please. So this year is, again, we want to, on our advertising efforts, we do always have an annual advertising, usually done around the April timeframe, around Earth Month, if you will. So we can just make sure that we are, getting our message out about it. But we also are looking to move all of our advertising efforts over here to our public information group so that they can make sure that we are communicating out about our various water use efficiency programs. We also are looking to work with our consultants to help us to do some market research to really define our markets on our segments and our target audiences. So again, we can really see where we need to outreach to those particular people, get them involved with our water use efficiencies programs, and help do our part with the conservation and drought. We also will have a plan to have some events throughout the years, not to mention we are planning still to do our water harvest coming up here in October timeframe. And so, we just are looking forward to the opportunity to engage one-on-one with individuals. Again, we will still continue to do our part through the virtual format because it's been very successful for us, but also knowing that in-person events are also very appreciated. And if we turn to the next slide, please. You can see here we have our education, very much important part. If we can, start with our students, they're at the K through 12 level, giving them those tours, letting them see behind the scenes, if you will, what it takes to produce this water, giving them sort of the talking points of, what can they do and encourage that towards their parents. Even better. We also do that through our art contest, our solar cup. We even partner with the surf riders to do turbine test, supporting them on what they do there to, again, inform and engage our students there. We also are looking to do some enhancements to our exhibits at our treatment facility at the Edward C. Little Water Reclamation Facility, and so that we can show them, again, another way to be able to demonstrate to them what it is that West Basin does. And in all of these efforts, we're trying to see where we can continue to see where we can get outside funding. And this in the MWD Metropolitan Water District member agency allocation. That's where we hope to see where we can tap into some of the dollars that Metropolitan has in their budget to help us support some of our efforts there. And then if I go to one more slide on the public information, it has to do with our Water Harvest Festival. Again, we plan to do this in person. You can see sort of the last few years what it's been. We did have an in-person event in 2018 and 19. Unfortunately, in 2020 with the pandemic, we did have to cancel it. And then for last year, 2021, we did actually do a virtual event. And so while very successful in what we were able to share and communicate to our staff, we do look to go back to in-person to share what that is. And as shown on the slide here, continuing to celebrate our 75th anniversary. All right, so that takes me through public information. Another focus for us is our Water Policy and Resources Department. And again, you can see this number here, side by side, you can see sort of relatively the same numbers. And so I wanted just to share with you how we intend to spend those dollars. So if I could take us to the next slide, please. And you can see the efforts here are that we do work with our state and federal advocacy services to make sure that we understand the legislation, both in proposed and in final form. So we make sure that we either provide comments, if you will, as they're being dialogued by the legislatures, or understand how we need to communicate and implement those items there. And we do have a team both at the federal and state level that supports us in that effort there. Our water bottle filling station, that's a successful program for us where we go out into the community and we do provide sponsorships, if you will, by providing, $1,000 to $2,000 for a location. And so we continue to see where we can provide that information there. And then finally, to our water demand modeling, I mentioned it earlier. Again, we just want to continue to understand where our water usage is within our community, within our service area, so that we understand how that impacts us as we move forward in making our budget assumptions, if you will, and to coordinate with you, the retail agencies and Metropolitan, on all of these efforts there. Next page, please. And as we mentioned there, we know we would love to work with our granting agencies to support some of our efforts here. And so you can see that we look to a variety of ways to be able to do that, both at a regional level, state level, and federal level. We are working with our staff and a consultant to help us really make sure that we understand what those opportunities out there, put our name on the list, if you will, and to really support you too. I know through we continue to be involved with the IRWIMP, the Integrated Regional Water Plan Management Plan. And so we want to make sure that we are continuing to see how we can make those those grant fundings available to us. All right. One more program area, which is the next one, which is the water use efficiency and conservation. This one here, you can see again, relatively the same, a slight uptick, if you will, and what does those dollars represent and what is it going to be? And so if we can go to the next slide, please. So these talks about a few of our programs here. Again, we have our Rain Barrel program. This Rain Barrel program is an important program to us to be able to do so. During the pandemic, we had a very creative idea to be able to do home deliveries, if you will, and that was what we were originally contemplating, if you will, to do sort of a mix, if you will, of both in-person and home deliveries. With a recent decision by our board, they have indicated that they like to return to in-person events, and so we'll be making a modification to reflect that in the budget. But that is just one of those important things, as you can see, as we go through this process with them. They provide feedback, we'll be incorporating that feedback. And so we will be seeing ourselves in your service area handing out those rain barrels. The SoCal Gas Partnership, this is a new one to us, and you can see here the intent of the program. And that what our goal is, which is again to provide 100 single-family homes in our West Basin area there. So we are looking to leverage that partnership, if you will, with SoCal Gas to be able to make this happen. Our Cii Water Efficiency, again, we want to continue to support our commercial, industrial, and institutional sectors by doing site assessments. And again, the goal is to do 50 of those site assessments in this next year. Next page. Grass replacement, very important program here. If we can remove that sort of that grass, and use sort of turf or other means to be able to do so, we will provide that rebate to you. This is done in conjunction with Metropolitan Water District. And again, we continue to see where we support there. We also have created a new program called Grass Replacement Plus, and that is more geared to our disadvantaged communities there. And it provides additional assistance there to be able to help them with not only landscape design, but also providing a tree and all that. So really trying to encourage that in that area as well. We also are looking to provide assistance with our public agencies to be able to do this, to also find ways to do landscape design and have them move towards, turf or drought tolerant aspects as well. And then we also have our general program support in support of our South Bay, with an agreement with, I should say, with the South Bay City's Council of Governments, the Environmental Service Center. We are able to really continue to get the word out there about all of the West Basin programs. And so we do appreciate their support in that area. Next slide, please. We do, like I said, get funding from Metropolitan through being a member agency there. And so we do hope to apply and get that $215,000 to reduce the cost, if you will, that's there. So hopefully, we can, continue to see where opportunities may exist to be able to get our, our full allocated share. We do also have two pending grants out there. One of them is almost near completion. We just need to get the final documentation, if you will. And as we receive those opportunities there, that will continue to grow our program for the water use efficiency. All right, moving on to the next slide. So here we have our overhead budget. So all of these efforts are definitely supported by, if you will, the teams that you see here, both our administration, the efforts that are there with our board of directors, taking care of this building, our finance and contracts team, and our human resources. And so you can see overall, we have a slight decrease that you see there between the 2 years, but you do see some individual increases as well. And I'll talk about that well, actually on the slide. So if you see here, we have a decrease in our administration costs. We had some litigation costs that we were seeing in the past years. Those have are reducing down to very little levels now. And so we're and just need to just basically our general counsel, if you will, not our special litigation needs, if you will, that we've had in the past. Board services, you see an uptick there, and that is because of the expected election costs that we'll have to pay our allocated share, if you will. But other than that, you see that they have remained relatively the same or are decreased there. And the increases that you see there in building is because of the cost of electricity going up, down on financing contracts because we had some costs in there to do some bond financing this last year. That's not anticipated in fiscal year 22-23. And then on human resources, I've already mentioned there. They're actually also mentioned on the next slide. So if we can go there, that really just focuses on what we're trying to do, which is that succession planning, looking at risk management, looking at employee development and diversity, equity, inclusion. But you can see there again, we are really trying to have that cost containment, if you will, on those overhead costs, really moving forward in those key critical areas that we discussed earlier with our board and incorporating them through the budget process. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. This is our proposed labor and budgets. You can see overall, we're a small staff of 50 with 6 interns, so 56 employees today. There is a discussion and a recommendation, if you will, to add 1 position that is actually sits on our org chart, but also one of the positions that we would like to fund that's on the org chart is our water quality and environmental compliance analyst. That particular position is vital as we continue to meet the regulatory and compliance needs and to make sure that we adhere to all the permits that we have. And so the board is being asked to consider to fund that position. It does have a merit pool in there for employees. We did base it off of our 2021 CPI index of 4.3%. And so we will have that incorporated there. The other consideration that's there is that we we're able to lower our benefit factor. Again, been able to really hone in on sort of what some of our benefits are. Still the same benefits that are there, but it's not costing as much as it has. And so it's has allowed us to decrease that there. And so you can see that's why some of the changes that you see there as well. All right, moving on to the next slide, please. Our proposed 5-year capital expenditures, this is what has been presented to the board. And as Greg has shared with you earlier, it's still under discussion with our board of directors, and we hope to continue to dialogue with them to understand which of these projects are set to move forward. But when we look at these costs that you see here, you can see it's about $157 million of projects that that begin or at least are initiated here in fiscal year 22-23, and then there are costs that are over this 5-year period of time. The most significant area, if you will, is in that R&R, and as I mentioned, we have a facility that was originally constructed in 1995 and have had certain phases or new additions, if you will, to it, and again. We want to make sure that we maintain the integrity of that system and meet those contractual requirements. And so that's why you see that list that's there. But we will continue to vet those projects out with our board of directors to see where it is. The items that you see there under the new infrastructure, that was the JMM Carson Regional Water Reclamation project, that phase 2 project there that we're currently under construction and hope to complete there in 2023. And then under the new infrastructure, customer pipelines and laterals, the most significant project that you see there is working with the PV Palos Verdes recycled pipeline. And so that, again, both of those two projects I've just mentioned do have a significant amount of external funding to support those projects there. And those projects that are listed under other projects are items that support our technology efforts, initiatives that's there, as well as any sort of improvements that we need to make to this building here for health and safety reasons. And so we want to make sure that we continue to maintain this building while the public, the board, and the employees are here. All right, so that takes us through all of the expenses. And again, we did take that to our board over a series of workshops. We did conduct them in the month of March, and then the capital portion was just discussed with the board on April 20th. And so again, we will continue to hear their input, incorporate that input into this process, but we wanted to share that with you here today. All right, let's move over to the next section, which is the water sales assumptions and their proposed rates and charges. So as you see here, we have our assumptions here about our potable retail and our barrier sales gives us a total of about 109,900. And so what's important to know that is that, we do have a project that with one of our refineries, while they're under a turnaround, that we're going to replace a tank. And so they'll need to take some imported water during that time to make sure that they continue to operate themselves. And so there's been a slight uptick, if you will, in our imported retail, but overall, we're actually seeing a decrease in our imported retail sales. And so again, having that demand study that we do and understanding what you do as customers are important to us. I've shared with you the recycled water sales. You can see here sort of the breakdown between our refinery customers, our barrier, and our disinfected tertiary, all very important to us. And again, knowing what those sales assumptions are helps us to determine what that recycled water budget is. But I say all of that is, and then I share with you those bullets on the right. Again, we are very aware of what's happening with us, and we want to make sure that we are fully engaged with you and with our community and with the state and understanding what it is. What are we going to do in the next drought and the ongoing drought? How is MET handling the situation? What is the groundwater usage going to be and how does that happen? Because increase in groundwater usage actually reduces our own sales assumptions under our potable. And so we wanted to be aware of that because that, again, is something that you, the customer, still knows that you have water, but it does affect different agencies differently. Understanding what the statewide objectives are so we can make sure that we incorporate that. We know that you as the customers will need to adhere to some of those requirements that are out there. And then again, we also are very aware and cognizant as to how much demand hardening is out there, how much drought fatigue that's there. But again, I know that that message is continuing to be out there. So with all of that said, our board did ask us to come back and provide some sensitivity analysis there to see if we had a 5% reduction in our imported water sales, what would that look like to our overall financial metrics? And so we have provided that information to them. All right. So on the next slide there, you'll see sort of a chart of sort of where our history has been. Then, the last, big drought that we had was in that 13-14 timeframe up to about 15-16. And you can see, so we, had a significant sort of consideration on the budget where we said, what, we need to drop that budget down the last time around. But I think, over the last few years, we've really been working closely with our customers to really understand what their demands are so that we can really put a realistic budget out there that we think that we're going to achieve. The anomaly, of course, is this year in 21-22, we've had to have a situation where we've had more imported water purchases. And that is because of the impact of the Hyperion spill to West Basin. And as a result, we've had to purchase a lot more imported water in order to make sure that overall that our recycled water customers' needs were being met. So that's not a normal for us, but that is something that we did see. But we do anticipate going forward that shall shrink because we're definitely, addressing and even the county is addressing the items that occurred there so that we can make sure that we can have stability in that water. And with that, I'll take us to the next slide. On this slide here, does also provide you a history of our last few years as it relates to the recycle water sales by the different types of customers that you can see. We do see sort of some stability, if you will, on a refinery and our disinfected tertiary over that period of time. And you can see we've been greatly impacted this past year on our Hyperion, by the Hyperion spill on our barrier sales. But we do see that upticking here in 22-23. All right, next slide, please. So understanding the sales assumption is very important to us. So again, the more we understand you as the customer, where you're going and how we're going there with you, it's better for us so that we understand what it is. The other side of the equation, of course, is what the rates are to that sales assumption. And so we have here just a quick sort of summary of sort of the different types of rates and charges that are come through here. So we as West Basin charge you one rate, but that one rate is actually made up of three components. And of those three components, two of those are metropolitans and one of them is West Basins. So I wanted just to share with you that, that first rate there on that sale of the imported water or the barrier water, it is on a per acre foot basis. How the rates change depending upon if it's metropolitan or if it's West Basin. So if it's West Basin, we refer to the our increase, our adjustment as the reliability service charge, and that is effective usually on July of each year. On Metropolitan Water District, they change their rates on a calendar year basis, and as such, we also adjust the rates on a calendar year basis.
Margaret, could I ask you a quick question if you don't mind?
Sure.
I've got to run in a few minutes. Are there too many other slides? Because I got some questions to ask you. I really appreciate that, but I was wondering if there's going to be too many slides left or how long you think it's going to end, because I 3-4 questions to ask you.
Sure. I have about, I think it says about 20 slides or so. So I can certainly address those questions with you offline if you like, or I don't know what your questions are.
I got to run for another meeting. I only had 1 hour for this meeting. So do you mind if I ask you quick questions and then I'll sign off if you don't mind?
I'll defer to our general manager if how you like to, or our board president, how you like to proceed.
But I can come back and I got to go to a meeting and I don't know when I'll be back. But if you don't have time, that's fine. I can ask you later off the line. In fact, I prefer to ask you those questions offline, if you don't mind, Margaret. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, then MWD has their commodity rate changes and then the RTS. So that is a fixed cost to us, but that we convert to a variable basis. And so understanding that acre feet is very important to us. Also to understanding too that they change it on a calendar year basis. We change, we want to match that up, but we have to understand sort of all factors associated with it. So again, those change at different times. On our fixed charges, there are two. One is the fixed service charge that West Basin implemented just a few years ago. That would be changing on a fiscal year basis, and then the MWD capacity charge would change on a calendar basis, and that's their sort of peaking charge, if you will. And again, we tried to match that sort of dollar for dollar. So with that, if I can go to the next slide, please. So the next slide here, again, Metropolitan Water District did have a series of workshops themselves, and the board did decide on April 12th, 2022. I should say they adopted on April 12th, 2022, the rates and charges for the next 2 calendar years. And so you can see those numbers listed at the bottom of the page. So today you see the rate is at 1,143. That will increase to 1,209 in calendar year 2023, and then again up to 1,056. So overall, Metropolitan Water District will have commented that they have an increase of about 5% on their overall rate increases. But depending upon the mix, if you will, of if it's treated, untreated, if it's tier 1, tier 2 sales, it could be slightly different. And so you'll see that on a future slide, what the specific impact is here that you see. Next slide, please. So the MWD, readiness to serve charge, as I mentioned, this is a fixed charge for Metropolitan Water District. It's assessed on a calendar year basis, and how they allocate to each of their member agencies is on a 10-year rolling average. And so depending upon where we fit in the overall equation, you can see sort of what our percentage is to that total. And then we then take that information and then convert it on a per unit basis. And so on the next slide there, you'll see the slide what shows sort of the math, if you will, behind it. So you can see that they are increasing this component from $140 million in collections to $154 million in 2023. You can see that the West Basin portion did increase from 7.82 to 8.01. So as you calculate down, you can see that that's how we get to that 6-month number. So if you just take 140, 7.82, and then because this is only half a year, again, calendar year basis, you can see what the number is. So overall, we are committed to pay $11.6 million. We take our acre feet there. So our retail and Dominguez Gap sales are what's divided into that particular number. And you can see for the first half of the year, it still remains at 100, but that it would increase to 121 for the second half of the year. Then on the next slide there is the third component. And again, we shared you what the rates have been over the years. And staff has been asked to provide some sensitivity analysis on that, and we'll share that information with you. So if we can go to the next slide there, just a quick recap, you can see sort of all the numbers that are there. The commodity rate itself actually was a 5.8% increase. The RTS was also an increase of 10%, but then the capacity charge actually decreased down. And so we likewise will see a reduction on the capacity charge or pass on that reduction to our customers as well. On West Basin side, we wanted just to see sort of what that change would be for our different types of customers. And so we are looking at our fixed service charge will remain relatively flat for each of our customers, slightly adjusted by individual customers, but the overall budget has remained the same, as well as the the reliability service charge, looking at a 0% flat increase to a 5%, which equates to about $12 there. So if we turn to the next slide, you'll see sort of what those numbers look like when you put all those components together. And so for us, you see that on the scenario 1, which is the no increase in reliability service charge, but passing through the Metropolitan Water increases, today you see the rate is $14.88. It remains at $14.88 for the next 6 months, July through December. And then in January 2023, passing through those Metropolitan rate increases, you can see it goes up $15.75 or $87. So an overall rate impact of 5.8%. Now, if we go to a 5% increase on a reliability service charge, that commodity rate you can see will change as of July 1, 2022, because that's when our rate changes. So we would add the $12 on there to the $245 and get to $257, therefore increasing the total rate to the customer to $1,500. Then we add in the Metropolitan rate increases, and then you can see the overall total there is $99, and then an overall rate impact of 6.6%. So while our 5% is 5% sounds like a lot, the overall effect, if you will, on just the commodity rate here is, you can see 6.6% or just less than 1%. The other thing that we were asked, like I said, to do, and going to the next slide, is the retail imported water sales. So you can see that if we did that 5% reduction, what would it look like? We know that, again, we've been asked to do voluntary reductions, and there is potential for increasing groundwater usage, which again are not our sales, they're another agency sales. So what would that look like here? And so we did provide that information. And on this next slide here, you see that when we ran those numbers there, you can see that those additional scenarios that you see there. So when you take all rates and charges into consideration, those rates and charges show that a 5% metropolitan, their overall metropolitan 5%, really equates to us when we have no other charges, increase, I should say, on our reliability service charge passing through the capacity charge and all that stuff is a 5.5% increase. And then you can see what the rates look like in each of those scenarios. And what's important to that, to us in the overall is, of course, we are very cognizant of rate increases and what that means to you, the customer. But also what's important to us is to making sure that we meet our financial metrics and have, pay-go funding available to pay for some of those R&R projects. So we don't have to necessarily go out and debt finance them, but something that we need to do. And again, that continued dialogue is happening with our board. We just had a discussion with them yesterday on long-range financial plan. And of course, that discussion about capital that is ongoing as well will help us take all of those into consideration as the board takes this information in and makes provides their feedback and then have something in front of them for June's consideration. All right, next slide, please. This just gives you a little bit more on the MWD's capacity charge. Again, just wanted to share with you, they're showing a decrease from 12,200 down to 10,600. And so we, because we peak at different times, if you will, between customers and when we collectively, we as the West Basin entity peak at Metropolitan, we're able to actually produce some additional savings down to our customers. And again, we're just trying to get down to, as near to zero, a net difference of 0 as we can. And so you can see there that the proposed rate for the capacity charge would go down to 9,135. Next slide, please. This gives you a little bit more background on our fixed service charge. Again, you can see that in that third bullet there, it remains relatively flat. And again, it's based off of the sum of two. The basis is the sum of two of our program budgets. So you can see it's relatively the same. So effectively, on a per acre foot basis, it remains relatively the same. But if we go to the next slide here, what it says is that we're supposed to base this off of a 3-year rolling average. So next slide shows you what the average acre feet have looked like and how we take that number there. And that last column to the next slide there shows you what your percentage is. And you can see what that new number would look like there. And so if there are any changes that are made to the budget, it certainly could change these numbers here, meaning if it changes anything in our overhead or anything in our public information, our water policy budget, if those budgets change, we would then see changes to these particular proposed rates. But again, the notion is that rather than collecting on the variable side, we have a fixed component to our rate structure. All right, let's move on to the next slide, which is our water rates. For our recycled system. And you can see here that you see an increase here on our proposed rates and charges for both inside and outside of our service area. And this is really just to reflect the increases that you see as it pertains to that cost increase on the recycled water system. That cost increase there you saw most notably with the chemicals, and that's what you see here. Not quite sort of the $300 that you see there, but it is a big increase. We do recognize that, but we do feel that the recycled water customers are, and to any of our customers would want to pay what it costs to produce, and that's what we're trying to achieve here by the proposed rates. Next slide. Just gets a little bit more into our commodity, our recycled water agreements that we have with our different refineries. And so based off of those negotiated amounts, negotiated agreements, if you will, and how they are negotiated, meaning like some of them are based off of a 3-year rolling historic average of actual unit cost. And so you can see where it is. And so while you may not see those cost increases in this particular year because it's based off of a historic 3 years, that is sort of incorporated into, it will be incorporated into future years. And so you can see that those side-by-side rates that you see there for our different ones. And each one has a unique calculation. So we need to work with the proposed, with those agreements to make sure that we come up with those proposed rates. All right, so ran through all of that really quickly as well, and I know that we're sort of long on time, but let me just get to the last section here, which is just to provide you what that overall summary looks like for revenues and expenses. And again, I'll get to what questions you may have, and I think I see one in chat as well. All right, so if we go to the next slide, please. This provides you the overall summary here. And again, I provided to you the fiscal year 21-22, so you can see what the numbers look like. And then I provided you essentially as option 1 and option 2, which is option 1 is if we use the 1099, which is what we are looking to move forward with as far as our sales assumption. With a no rate increase, you can see that we have an overall revenue budget. Operating expense budget of $235 million. And if we were to move forward with a 5% increase, you would see different numbers there. And as these numbers are on the screen, I know that some numbers have changed as a result of that. So again, keep that in mind. This is a continuing work in progress, if you will, as decisions are being made, we're incorporating that into the conversation. But at the time this presentation was presented, you can see the numbers there. So overall, you can see that the big increase there is on our recycled water operations. You can see that's been the biggest increase from 21-22. You can see technical planning has increased, and we've explained why that is the case. But relatively speaking, most of the budgets have remained relatively flat. And the impact, if you will, that designated fund / PAYGO, that is sort of the difference between the two, your net revenues, if you will, from all of their operating revenues you'll see on your next slide to the other costs that you see. This provides you a breakdown, sort of you can see where the costs are. So you can see the most significant cost to us is our water purchases, followed by with our recycled water system and our debt service. Next slide, please. This provides you a summary of our operating revenues, again, providing you this option 1 and option 2. Again, we will continue to look at that there, but again, imported water purchases, you see an increase there. You see an increase, slight increase on the recycled water sales. And then you can see that our standby charge revenues, actually that number has actually now is a lower number because of some new information we received from the settlement. So that actually is coming in about $6.2 million. And then you can see the other costs that you have there. So that then takes us to the next slide, which just breaks down that revenue. Again, you can see that, we're largely driven by our water sales assumptions. So making sure that we are in connection with you is important, so we understand how that weighs into all the ways that we need to do that. And it helps us to plan forward too of how we can provide other ways to approach, if you will, our revenue strategy, if you will, to make sure that we have manageable rate increases where appropriate. And that takes me to the very end. I apologize for the slight overturn of the time, but I will open it up to questions. But let me first turn it back to our general manager for his input, please. Greg, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We have a little bit of an echo. Okay, well, forgive me. I can't unmute the room, so I have an echo. I'm going to hand it back to Margaret as we open up for questions and discussion.
Thank you. And so yes, I'll see if anybody has a question. I know there's one in chat, and I will ask those that are from the West Basin team that could support me in answering any of the questions that may be raised by the customers. I would appreciate that. So. All right. Any questions outside of the one in chat? All right, there. So let me see if I can, so we did have a presentation yesterday that was on our long-range financial plan. And again, I know a few of you were able to attend that as well, but here it says something. One of the bullet points mentions current reserves are 80 million, but minimum balance policy is about 55. And that minimum balance could change as our operating budgets change, and so that could increase over the period of time. There are two considerations as it relates to reserves, as we all know in our own agencies. One is sort of what you're required to have, and one is sort of that provides you that buffer for those unforeseen reasons. And I will say this year has been one of those unforeseen seasons that we've needed to use those reserves to help us navigate through this potential this past year. But again, it also though says the opportunity for us to perhaps use some of our reserves to pay for some of those projects if deemed necessary by our board of directors. The other consideration is that outside of what our policy states is we also are very cognizant that we have our investors as well as the credit rating analysts that are looking at us as well, and looking at what our days cash in hand is. And so while our policy may say something different, we also are aware that they are actually looking for actually higher numbers than what we show. And so we are making sure that we balance, if you will, between the two that you see there. Your other question there about the West Basin's floor feeder, I don't know that I have an answer there, but we will note the question and we'll make sure that we respond to you at the city. Are there other questions or comments?
I wanted to ask a question. This is Nikki with the City of Manhattan Beach again. I'm also looking at the packet, page 20 from yesterday's presentation, and I noticed a significant increase in the net revenues, particularly between 22, 23, and then the projected for the next fiscal year, 23 and 24. So do all of those revenues, it looks like after operating expenses and debt and everything, do all of those revenues, are they allocated to CIP projects? Is there any other, obviously there's a comprehensive list as to what you guys do, I understand that, but more specifically, is that something that goes to CIP projects, or why the big increase in revenues, I guess?
Sure. Well, yes, and thank you for the question. It's sort of a complicated answer, but I will try to simplify it. So in that 5-year summary, what is shown there is to say sort of what are those net revenues that are available. We typically say that the net revenues that are available are there to reinvest into our system. So we're not trying to increase our cash balances. It's really just about taking care of our system there. But I'll say the second part of it is that we still have a question out there about those capital projects that you saw shared yesterday as well as today. We have $157 million of projects. A fair amount of them are R&R type projects, and if we were just to kind of go through the process of how we're going to fund them, are we going to use cash, reserves, PAYGO, or are we going to go out and use debt financing? If we were to say, these are, long-term assets that have intergenerational equity, we want to make sure that the customers are paying that through the use of that asset over that period of time, that we would then need to issue debt. So this, as you can see, my debt remained relatively flat during that period of time. And what we're looking to see is what are we doing as far as those projects. And once we understand what those projects are, we would then be in a position to then say, are we going to debt finance them? And that would start to increase that number there, which means that would lower the net revenues there. So one way or the other is actually going towards capital assets. It's just, is it going through as a pay for it, over a period of time, or is it pay for it now because that's how we want to fund our projects? So that is still under discussion with our board about the specifics of that. So hopefully that gives you clarification. If not, I can certainly discuss that further with you.
Thank you.
Margaret, could I ask you a few questions if you don't mind?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Welcome
Yeah.
back, Elias.
Thank you so much, and I do apologize for interrupting your presentation.
No
Please
problem.
forgive me. So very quickly, I want to make sure your website is updated regarding these programs that are offered to our residents, and I'm sure they are. But I just want you to know we have linked your website to ours in case residents want to take advantage of those opportunities, and I'm sure they are, but I just want want to confirm that.
Yes, and I know EJ's on the phone here, or if he's available. Could you address that, EJ, for me?
Yes, Margaret. Our water use efficiency programs are always evolving, and we update them as soon as possible. It's important to note that Metropolitan Water District and their investments in water use efficiency are always changing as well, specifically related to the grass replacement or turf removal programs. So we try to update that as soon as possible. As soon as actions are taken by Met and they're implemented, we try to get those up and regularly update our website. So we thank you for promoting that on your website as well.
Sure. And the follow-up question regarding the water conservation, we still, connect or rather add the links on our website that would connect to your links. So I'm sure that you have those good messages encouraging people to conserve water, even though. Yeah, so I just want to make sure of that. Okay, so one more question, if you don't mind, Margaret. The
Yes.
city of El Segundo is launching the Green Business Program, which basically we work with COG, and we are trying to get as many businesses to be certified as green. And to that end, we are making you guys to be partners with us, and I just want to make sure that if you don't mind, if there is anything I need to be doing with our COG rep who is helping us with you guys, I just want you to be aware of it. So there's a good chance that our COG rep who is going to help us for implementing this wonderful program will be in touch with West Basin. And to that end, I would like to thank you in advance. But that's something we are doing this year for the first time.
Thank you, Elias, and I'm sure EJ will appreciate.
Margaret, if I could just touch on that real quick, it's important to note that West Basin is a key partner with the South Bay Cities Council of Governments, as well as the South Bay Environmental Services Center. They help us administer a lot of our water use efficiency programs, and we contribute to the Green Business Program. And obviously, in the city of El Segundo, you have a lot of industrial customers, but you also have a lot of restaurants. We have Cash for Kitchens programs. They're aware of all of our water use efficiency programs and can really help you out as far as working with us and implementing those.
Thank you so much. And EJ, if you would, if you'd be kind enough to send me your email and your contact info, I'd love to have that information with me if you don't mind.
Okay, not a problem.
Thank you so much. And one more question. This is really, you may not be able to answer that, Margaret, but someone hopefully will be able to. I received a couple of emails from Topgolf. This is a new, as you know, Topgolf was the ribbon cutting took place a couple of weeks ago. It's a new developer whom we have assigned a lease agreement with off PCH, and they are right next to West Basin facilities that you all have off of PCH. They were telling me there were some smelling that they are getting and I'm not sure if the smell was coming from West Basin or from Chevron. So in that facility off of PCH, are you guys doing any treatment at all that potentially would cause or create a smell?
We'll take that question into hand, and then I'll have our general manager respond to that question.
Thank you.
Yes. Service request.
All right. So Elias, was there any other questions that you
No,
had? I
that's
see your
it.
hand still raised. Okay. Nikki, I see your hand raised. Did we answer your question or did you have another one?
I have another question, actually. I recently moved here from Chicago about a year ago, so I'm still kind of understanding this process. Is West Basin not subject to the Prop 218 process when it comes to raising water rates?
So it's my understanding, I know there's been another colleague at the City of Manhattan Beach that has asked a similar question. And I know that our general manager will respond, but it is my understanding that Prop 218 is not something that a water wholesaler needs to comply to. So I know you as a retailer need to, but as a water wholesaler, we do not.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the questions there. Is there any other questions from the group? All right, well, with that said, I did put into chat, Nikki, one more question?
No, I will lower my hand. I'm so sorry.
No, I just want to make sure. All right, well, with that said, I did put into chat my contact information, also a link to the previous presentations. And if we, for those that did not receive, like I said, the invitation, my apologies, I did have a list on hand. And it did go to all of our customers. So if we have to provide an update, we just encourage you to send me an email. Also, you can send it to our Office of the General Manager, and we'll make sure that we get updated there. But do continue to follow us along. This budget still is being contemplated by our board of directors. We do appreciate their feedback. We do appreciate your input as well. And with that, I will thank you for your time. Greg, are you able to come back with us and say any concluding words, or are you still dealing with audio issues?
Yeah, I was able to figure out how to turn on the audio, so now I no longer have an echo. Yes, excellent. And thank you, Margaret, for hosting a very good workshop here, disclosing all of our planning towards our 2022-23 budget. Thank you to all of our attendees and participants for raising poignant questions. And we certainly appreciate, the thoughtful feedback that we're receiving from you. And we look forward to having your continued participation as we move forward towards board consideration on June 27th. So with that said, I think we're ready to adjourn for today.
So Margaret, is someone going to get back with me regarding my question and the smell?
Yes.
Yes, we'll get back with you on that, Elias. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
We'll have our operations folks take a look at that.
Thank you so much. And just so for the records, let me give you my number: 310-524-2356.
Got it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Margaret. And again, I apologize for interrupting your briefing.
No, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Elias. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.